which makes a grand total of number 8, I guess, for our Sinatra journal app that we've been building out. And we finished the project in terms of, I think it satisfies the project requirements, but we definitely want to make it look a little nicer. And right now, we've added flash messages during our last session. We can review those a little bit for anyone who missed that, how that works. And I'd like to add some helper methods as well. So first of all, would anyone like to see a quick review of flash messages and how they're implemented? Because I'm going to add them to some more places than I have them now. Okay, I got a yes. All right, so we're going to look over flash messages. What flash messages allow us to communicate to a user that something happened. And the nice thing about flash messages, the way they're built, is they're temporary. Flash messages survive exactly one page refresh or one HTTP request. So one brand new GET request, and then they're gone. Okay, and so what that looks like, the way that we implemented it, first, in my gem file, I grabbed gem sinatra-flash right there. Okay, then I ran bundle install. The next step was to go to my controller, my application controller, and inside of my configure block, I invoke the register method and I pass in Sinatra Flash. Okay, so Sinatra Flash is a class coming from our Sinatra Flash gem. And I don't need to require it up here because I'm already requiring, inside of config environment, I'm already requiring all of my gems. And so that will be already included. Okay. So now I've got register Sinatra Flash inside of my configure block, and I've bundle installed. And what it looks like from there is now that gives me access to a hash. I'm going to go ahead and run my server. And if I look, let's just say I'll put a binding here just so we can see it. Binding.pry. So this is going to hit as soon as I load localhost 9393. And if I drop into my binding here, I'll see that I now have, oops, oh, stupid bundle exec. Okay, sorry, bundle exec shotgun. Let's try that again. I need to fix that dependency issue. I'm not sure what it is. It's rack wants 2.05 instead of 2.06. I can't imagine there's much difference, but that's okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and reload this page. I should catch on my pry. And now that everything's loaded, if I type in Sinatra Flash, it's recognized. Okay, so there's a bunch of methods there that I now have. And I also have this thing called Flash, and Flash is just a hash. Okay. Cool. Does anybody ever, so like I could even check that out. It's Sinatra. It's a Sinatra Flash hash. Right. And I could check out its ancestors. Flash.ancestors. Let's see, where does this thing come from? Whoops. Flash.class.ancestors. And we can see that it comes from Sinatra Flash hash, from delegator, and then up to basic object. Everything extends from basic object. Cool. All right, so now I have this Flash, which is an empty hash. And what I could do is I can assign key value pairs to it, right? I could say Flash, let's see, favorite taco type. Oops, I don't need the symbol there. Yes, I do. Equals fish. Right? And now I have Flash now has a key value pair. Wait, what? Flash message equals hello. What? That's interesting. Okay, so I was expecting to be able to manipulate Flash right here inside of this thing. Let's actually see this. This could be really interesting. Let's see what happens as I go on. I'm gonna lose that binding. Excuse me. This could be cool. We'll see. So this thing should be loading. This should be loading. Should be loading. Hey, look at that. Notice that when I created this thing, first I changed this thing to favorite fish taco type of fish, and then I said a Flash message of hello. And notice that we got hello here, even though I didn't see it here. Does that feel strange to anybody? And this is where Flash is useful. So basically what happens is we assign these key value pairs, but it's not just any old hash, it's a Flash hash. And what that means is that it's only the key value pairs that you create are going to be made available on a page refresh or on an HTTP request. And then they're going to disappear. So as soon as I refresh this page, it's gone. By the way, the piece that we're missing here in terms of looking at this is my user show page that we're looking at over here. And so if I look at the way that I loaded this message to appear, or I should say the way that I allow this message to appear, is I actually put an if statement inside of my layout file. And inside of my layout file, I put an if statement that says, if there's a message, display it as an H3. Okay, it's a simple little 3 lines of logic where I'm displaying this thing if it exists. And notice that I called the second one here message, which is why we say hello. If I had put an if statement that said if flash message or if favorite taco type, it would have showed me fish. But of course, I didn't do that here. So finally, to round this whole thing out, the way that we implemented this, if I split, this was for, let's see, I think we implemented it for signing up or signing out. I actually have to look. So let's look at my user's controller. Okay. So here it is. So this is where I said, so for example, post login, in my post login route, if I create if my user logs in successfully, then this is great, and I'm going to my show page. If my login fails, I'm building a message that says your credentials are invalid. So I'm going to log out and show this in action. Okay, so I'm going to try to log in. Today, did you hear my response to that? Or I didn't catch when you dropped that in there. Why didn't I have to require Sinatra and require Sinatra Flash? Do you want me to go over that again? I certainly can. Okay, so the question is, why didn't, in the documentation, it says we need to require Sinatra and require Sinatra / Flash. Why didn't I have to do that? Why is this working without that? And I'll show you 2 things here. First, I'll show you this in action. Okay, this is definitely bogus credentials. I'll try to log in. And I should get a flash message saying invalid credentials. I built the message here, and which means that this thing's going to survive 1 page refresh, and then it should show up because I went ahead and put this in my layout, so it'll always catch it. My little if statement here. Oops, wherever it is, there it is. Sorry, I keep scrolling past it. This guy, and so that should show up and show in here. Do we get a binding? What's going on here? No, we're just slow. Cool, and then we see your credentials were invalid, please sign up or try again. So there's a couple of, I'd like to make this a little bit better of a user experience. And a couple things I'd like to do. First of all, if these messages are errors of some sort, I'd like to show that somehow. And the way I'd like to do that, actually, instead of calling it just message, I'm going to call it error. So inside of my controller, instead of saying flash message, I'm going to say flash errors. I'll say errors. I'll say errors, plural. We'll talk about why in just a minute. So I'm going to change. So I'm going to go ahead and have a message, but I'm also going to have a flash errors. Okay. So now I'm checking for 2 things. First of all, is there a message? Is there a key with message? Otherwise, is there a key with errors, or a key of errors, I should say. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add some inline styling here. Color red. I don't think I need quotes here, do I? Did I do this? I always have to look up my styles. Is that right for an inline style? Somebody help me out here. I could look it up too. Feels right. Let's try it. Bad login credentials. And I changed this thing to errors, so now I should land down here. And as long as I didn't screw up my inline style there, which I might have. Let's see. And while this thing's loading, today what I'll show you is that inside of application controller, I have require config environment. And my config environment is if I close up my folders and I step back, here's my config, here's my environment. In environment, I set my Sinatra environment to development if I haven't already. And then I require bundler setup, and immediately following that, bundler.require. And this line of code, line 4, requires all of my gems to load, including Sinatra and Sinatra Flash. So everything here is going to get grabbed. Everything anyway that for inside the development environment or inside of the main part of the gem file here. So all this stuff is going to load. Okay. And so included in that are those 2 lines of code. In the documentation, it says to include them explicitly because they don't know they don't know or care how you're going to set up your environment. If I didn't include this and I picked and chose what I wanted to require at the top of this file, then I might need to include those as well. I happen to be using bundler and grabbing all of my stuff, so that's why I don't have to include those lines of code. Okay, so now it looks like I need to look up how to inline style. Style equals color red, just like that. Let's try it. Layout. Style equals, so I don't need the brackets, is that it? Oh, I always need the, CSS always wants the semicolons. So now I'll try to see if I can catch this. I don't know if I can catch that or not. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to show error messages in red, and the other messages I'll just show in black, or maybe I'll change them to green or something like that. Cool, and now I've got a nice red error message. By the way, that reads terribly against my light green background, so that kind of hurts my eyes, but you get the idea. So actually I could move these, I think, inside of, where could I move them inside of? Okay, I could move all these inside of this wrapper class. That'll work. So I'm going to just take these and move them down. So now I think this will be easier to read. So the cool thing about Flash messages is they last for one HTTP request. So let's like start sprinkling some more in here. Suppose that I log in and I actually want to say a welcome message when we log in. I could say Flash message equals welcome. Let's see, I need to use interpolation here, user.name. And the only reason it's up to me that I chose to use 2 different keys, message and errors, so that I can make one of them red and the other one I'll just keep black for now. Okay, so now I'm actually going to log in as Howard, and this is much nicer to read against the white background there. So now I'll go ahead and log in, howard@howard.com, and I'll use my insanely secure password of password. And let's see if this now picks up. I built this Flash message, and we'll see if it'll show up. It should say welcome Howard, hopefully. There it is, welcome Howard. And so when I say a Flash message lasts only one HTTP request, watch, if I reload the page, if I click the refresh button, which I just clicked, notice that even though this thing will still run, the Flash messages was created in the post request. I didn't send a new post request, I sent a new GET request. And so it's gone, okay? So now what I could do is I could talk to the user when they're doing stuff. So typically when I'm going to want Flash messages to be, I should say, typically the place where I'm going to want to put Flash messages are going to be in post, patch, and delete controller actions. That's where I'm going to want to build my Flash messages, right? Because typically, what do you want to do at the end of one of those? We're going to make something in a post request, edit something in a patch request, or delete something with a delete request. And inside of that controller action, we're trying to make a change. And either that's going to be successful or unsuccessful. Either we're going to log in or we're not. Either we're going to create a new journal entry or we're not. Either we're going to delete a journal entry or we fail for whatever reason. And so that's where we want to be able to communicate to the user. This succeeded, this failed. This succeeded, this failed, right? So we can start to look through these controllers and think about where would we like to put more flash messages, right? Post users. So we're creating a brand new user or not. Okay, so here's success, here's not success. So in success, I could add a message because I don't want it to show up in red. Flash message equals you have successfully created an account. Again, I can talk to the user, user.name. Welcome. Okay, welcome. Okay, and then if this is creating a new user, if it failed, I can say flash message equals, oops, sorry, this was errors, right? Equals your, let's see, account creation failure. Okay, so, and this is another one I'd like to talk about. So I'm going to log out, and I'm going to try and create a new, user. So I'm going to try and sign up. So I'm going to sign up, and let's see. Not sure who I do and don't have in here. So I don't think I have Mark. So we'll go with Mark. Your M at M dot. Oh, you know what? I don't want to supply an email or a password. I just want to be Mark. Okay, I'm going to create a user. And let's see what happens. What? Account creation failure? What do you mean account creation? I put my name in, I put Mark, and I hit enter. Why did it fail? This is where you can't expect your users to know how to use websites. Sometimes they need some instruction. So this could make somebody, this doesn't tell me anything. It tells me it failed, but why, right? So we can provide some more instruction here. And this is where active record errors comes into play. So active record errors is something that you'll learn more about on Rails if you haven't already. Does anyone want to take a stab at a quick overview of what active record errors is? What is that? What is the errors object? Anyone? Is anyone feeling daring? You don't have to be that daring. What is it? Does anyone know? So what I'm going to do is, go ahead. What's up?
Oh, hey, Howard, it's Alwina. I was thinking that maybe the errors would let you know if you haven't filled in any of the form fields.
Okay. So that's possible, yes. But yes, so I'll say that is one way the errors could work, is if you don't fill out a form field, our errors could attach. Let's look at the errors closely. And what that means is I'm going to go ahead and click create user again. And I know it's going to fail because I didn't supply an email or password. So active record errors are a specific object that we get. And so here I have this user, whoops, was it user? User.create. Shouldn't I have user here? Oh, I didn't even get my user created here. Okay, so this isn't. Oh, man. All right, so then what I still have is params, right? Params. Okay, so if I try to say, I'm going to go ahead and fire this line of code, line 52, which I'll change the structure here a little bit in a moment, but for now we can just do this. And I'll look at user, and user errors. Errors is an object. It's a method, first of all, that exposes an object. So I can say at user.errors, okay? And notice that I get an active model errors object. Okay, I have a base instance attribute which is a user, and then I've got messages, and messages is a hash, a set of key value pairs. Okay, and each key value pair, the key represents one of the attributes, and the value as an array represents an array of the problems with that attribute. So in active record, when we say errors, what we mean is this errors object, and when we expose the errors object with a method, We can call errors directly on any object in Active Record. And if any of the validations fail on the object that we've set within our models, then we'll see that we'll see a specific message according to whatever failed. In this case, what you can do is you can put the whole thing together as a sentence. Password can't be blank. And so the cool thing is I have some helper methods automatically as well. Errors.full_messages. And that'll tell me as an array, password can't be blank. And I can even tag .toSentence on that, which puts it into string format rather than array format. Okay. So active record errors, again, this is advanced for Sinatra. You don't need to do this in Sinatra, but what this allows me to do is it allows me to communicate with the user a little bit better. So what
Howard, is this a feature that's been built into Active Record like since we started using it, or is this something you have to add on?
This is part of Active Record.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a ton of functionality in Active Record that you don't even know about yet.
Cool.
Active Record's really cool. And we just, in terms of the curriculum, it's like this isn't imperative yet. You'll get into this with Rails and you'll learn how to use it. So this is truly a stretch goal in terms of the Sinatra project, right? This is not something you need to do, but I think it's fun as a stretch goal. I think it's really useful, right, to be able to communicate to the user this way. Okay. Yeah. So by the way that the errors get populated, for example, if I do something like u equals user.new, you might think if I say u.errors that I would have some errors, right? Notice that ID, name, email, and password are all nil. The only validation that's showing, by the way, is that password can't be blank, and we'll talk about that in just a second. So wouldn't you expect to see the same thing here? If I say u.errors.full_messages, wouldn't you expect to see password can't be blank? I mean, I would have expected it, but we don't. We see nothing. And the reason for that is the errors only get populated after certain method invocations. And if we look, actually, we can look this up. If we look up active record errors, there are, I want to say 7 methods, but really just the ones that you're going to want to know about are valid. Its inverse is invalid, by the way, so you could say valid or invalid with a question mark. And then, of course, create, save, and update. Those will trigger the validations. And somewhere in here, here they are. So this is a list of the methods that will invoke the errors to be added or not. These will trigger your validations, along with valid and invalid. I don't know why they don't add valid and invalid to this list here, but they are there as well. So now if I call u.valid like this, valid, okay, false. And now if I look at errors, actually I can just repopulate, errors.fullMessages.toSentence, I get password can't be blank. So the errors aren't there until one of these methods triggers it. So I could do another one like x equals user.new. Again, this is going to be blank x.create and x.save, not create. Okay, so save failed, and now again I should be able to see my errors. x.errors.full_messages. Messages. Okay, there we go. Password can't be blank. So notice that I only have this one validation here. Does anyone know why? Are there any other gems for error messages or notifications that we can use? Probably, and I know that's a sounds like a smart aleck answer, but these are the ones that I can tell you how to use. I think they work pretty well. There definitely are going to be other gems out there that you could do something like this with. I don't know. I mean, I feel like there must be. I can't recommend any others to you though. These are the ones that I know about that I can share with you. Good question though. So password can't be blank. Why is that the only validation failed? Notice that X has no name, no email. Like, don't I require that name and email exist? Can anybody see why I'm only getting a notice about password? I'll give you a hint. The hint is here. Okay, so here's my user model. I have has secure password and has many journal entries. And then when I try to create a user, what am I doing? How am I right now protecting a user from being created that doesn't have a name and an email as well? All I'm doing is looking at the params. So if the param's name isn't empty and the email's not empty and the password's not empty, then I'll create this user. But with has secure password, we actually get a validation automatically, which is that password must exist. And so what this looks like with active, according to active record, that's the only validation I have, right? If I add a password to this X thing, password, of course, x.save, true, this thing's saved. So if I look at my last user, I now have an empty user with, or a no name, no email user, but that has a password. According to active record, this is the only thing that's being protected is the password. Doesn't care about name or email. The only check I'm making is I'm making sure the params aren't empty when they're coming in. So this should be enough because here's the only place that I'm creating a user. But over here in the terminal in Tux, I'm bypassing the server, or I should say I'm bypassing the browser entirely, and I'm sending this request directly to active record, and active record's like, hey, you got a password, you're good to go. Okay, does that make sense? Cool. So, so according to active record, the only validation I have is for password. Okay. So when it comes to adding more validations to our models, does anybody know how I can do that within my model objects? And that's Sushi, that's exactly what we're going to talk about. Yep. So that's the question I posed, and you asked the same question at the same time, and the answer is, of course, yes. Okay. Does anybody know how we can add validations with active record? Has anyone done that before? Awesome, Nadia, that's perfect. Validates names, presence true in the model. So up here I can say validates, just like Nadia put in the chat, validates name, presence true. And notice that this is a method invocation. The first argument is the attribute that I'm going to validate, and the second argument is a key value pair. There are actually a number of key value pairs for each of these validations that we can include, but this is a common one. Okay, another one. So I can also, by the way, add. I'm just going to put on two different lines. Validates email presence too. I could say validates name and email presence too on the same line. I like making them separate though. It feels better to me. Another thing I could do is I could say I want email to be unique. So I could say validates email uniqueness true. What that will do is it'll ensure that no two users have the same email address. Unique, if I can spell uniqueness right. Uniqueness, I think that's right. So we'll give that a shot, okay? So this is here I'm using active record. Previously, I was simply looking at params and relying on looking at my params as they were coming in from the form and making sure that they weren't empty. Now I actually have active record validations that will prevent creation, saving, or updating in the database if these requirements are not met. Any questions about this, where we stand right now? Okay, so let's see how that changes things. First of all, I shouldn't have exited that. I'm going to get rid of that last user. Bundle exec tux, because I don't want an empty user screwing everything up in the database. And by the way, this is a common problem that we see. So at some point in time, you're building your project, you create a bunch of stuff, you create a bunch of users in your database and whatever other information, and suddenly you're getting this weird error that there's no method name for nil class. And you're like, I know I have a name for my users, but that's not the error, right? So user.last, notice, has this empty name and email, and that's going to cause problems within my code. Okay, so if we do allow this bad data to persist while we're testing, we need to make sure to either change it or delete it. I'm just going to go ahead and destroy it. User.last.destroy, gone. Okay, so now user.last should now be a valid user. Okay, awesome. So now let's see how this changes things within my Flash messages. This is going to, and I'll show you how this is going to allow us to be much more communicative with our users. So I'm going to go back to my application. And instead of seeing account creation failure, I want to tell the users what went wrong. Given what we just saw in the console, how might I change this sentence? Anyone? Hey, Ashley.
Hi, don't mind me.
I don't mind you. I just saw you post. Hey, Maurice, I don't think I saw you sneak in either.
Many people told me that Howard's a great study group leader. Hi guys, I work at Flatiron. I'm just coming in to like hang out. And so I had to jump in and watch. So
I pay people a lot of money to say stuff like that. So
you have some real champions over there.
That's kind of you.
Thanks for letting me join.
Yeah, anytime. You can always come. You can always stop by. So anybody have any ideas of how we might now adjust this Flash error message? Given that we now have these validations on name and email, we know we already had one on password, and I want to be explicit when I tell somebody what went wrong.
So I don't remember exactly how you wrote it, but it was something along the lines of the way that the two sentence using the active record error, like using that and then turning it into a sentence.
Exactly. So we can.
Whenever it goes wrong, it sends the right message.
Right, and so I know I have this user object, user.errors.full messages. This is what you were talking about. You weren't sure what method it was, right? User.errors.full_messages.to sentence. Now, does anyone know what the problem is? I'm going to kind of zoom out a little bit. I do have, this isn't going to work yet. Why not?
Is that because it doesn't know which thing doesn't have anything in it, like if it's not name or email or password, like it doesn't delineate?
No, it'll know. It will know. The problem is that I created user on line 52 inside of the else part of my block, and so it's going to be nil here. And so what I'm going to do is introduce a new pattern, a different pattern that you're going to use. Again, this is something you'll use in Rails, right? We're into stretch features in our Sinatra project. This is not a requirement, but it is something you'll learn soon enough. And I'm going to introduce a different pattern. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this line of code above the if statement. But instead of using create, I'm just going to instantiate a new user. What's the difference between new and create?
Create saves it.
Exactly. Creates, saves it, creates, persists in the database. Those are equal and accurate sentences. Whereas new simply instantiates a new object. So here I have a brand new Ruby object using new. And now instead of checking the params like I had before, what I want to check is, can or does the user save to the database? Now instead of relying on checking the parameters coming in from the forms, I'm going to fall back on my active record validations. So if I'm going to do that, that's fine, but I do need to make sure that I have validations on every single attribute that I want them for. In this case, I want the name to exist, I want the email to exist, and I don't want any duplicate emails. HasSecure password automatically gives me a validation for password. By the way, we sometimes see this, validates password, presence true. Does anybody know why this is actually a problem? It seems like it makes sense, right? It's logical. We want the password to exist. Why is this a problem? Anyone? It's a little tricky, maybe. I'll give you a hint. If we look at our schema, do I have a password column? It's password digest, exactly. So if I do this on line 6, active record is smart, but it's not that smart. It says, okay, this password thing must exist. And so when I try to save something to the database, it's going to look and say, does this thing password exist? And there is no password attribute for a user. So this is always going to fail, and this validation will always fail, and that's a tricky one. So if we're using HasSecure password, we already have a validation for password, so keep that in mind, okay? So we're going to make sure not to do that. So now the pattern, though, back to where we were in the controller, I know I have all the validations I want, so I'm going to eliminate the check for params. And instead, I'm going to say if user dot, does anyone know what I'm going to do? Anyone want to take a stab? What might I do here? Yeah, if user.save, that's exactly right, Nadia, nice job, absolutely. So keep in mind that if when I save something, if I drop into tux, I think I already, did I exit my tux? I did, so bundle, exec tux. If I drop into tux, if I try to save a user.create, okay, I'll do it the way that I was doing it. So user.new, u equals that thing, I don't know why I did that out of order. So now I have this empty user. Okay, if I say user.save, if it doesn't save, I get false. If it does save, so u.name equals Howard, u.password equals password, u.email equals blah, blah, blah. If I say u.save, I get true. And it wouldn't matter if I got true or if I got the object back, right? Because in Ruby, everything is truthy other than nil and false. So as long as I get back anything truthy, this will be just fine for a control within an if statement. And yes, the code will execute, right? So whatever I put as the control or condition in an if statement will still execute. And as long as it returns something truthy, we'll execute the code inside. Otherwise, we'll execute the else, okay? So this is good news. Now I have this user thing available that's instantiated. And if it saves properly, then I'm going to tell the person that they've created a new account, and that's great. Otherwise, I'm going to tell them exactly what went wrong. And I think at least 2 people pointed out I'm going to use the user errors. And actually, I'm going to put it into a sentence nicely. Account creation failure, and then I'm going to say user.errors.fullmessages.toSentence. I'm going to remove my binding and see what happens. Oh, I got to save. Okay, so I'm going to refresh this page. Notice that when I refresh, this flash message will disappear, right? And eventually, someday, it's gone. Now I'm going to try and create, how about I'll go ahead and put my name in there, and I'll go ahead and put a password, right? Because this thing didn't tell me why it failed last time, so now I have some ridiculous password.
Howard.
Yes.
Hi, Alwina here.
Hey, Alwina.
Time to do a git commit.
Oh my gosh, it sure is. You are the Git champion, Alwina. I don't know what I'd do without you. I would have no good commit messages. So thank you. While we're waiting for this thing to work, I don't know. My server is running rather slowly. I'm going to go ahead and look at my status here. Okay, think about what I want to commit. Okay, let's just run back here though and check it out. I gave a name, I gave a password, and so my validation is email can't be blank. Okay, if I don't provide any of these things and I create user, and again I kind of have to wait a little bit. So let's think about this. Add app models user, git commit. I added validations. Add AR validations. Okay. And when my server comes back, hopefully sometime today, it should now tell me account creation failure with password can't be blank, name can't be blank, and email can't be blank. And so I get all of those. And so this is where the errors come in handy. All right, I built that flash message right here. Keep in mind, as I mentioned before, this part using active record validations like so, and using the error messages with this pattern in our controllers. This is a stretch goal with your Sinatra project. It is not required, okay, right? So your has secure password is required. You must use this macro, which links active record and bcrypt and allows us to use a hashed version of your password in your database. You must do that. But the rest of the validations, checking for params the way we had before, is totally fine. So please understand that when it comes to building your Sinatra project, this is beyond what you need to do. But again, that's the purpose of the study group. We're building stretch goals on this guy now. Okay, cool. Any questions about that? Any questions about the flash messages and how they work? There's one more gotcha with flash messages. And the gotcha is that flash messages don't only work, let me say that sentence again. Flash messages only work on a new HTTP request. In other words, they will only work the way you want them to if your controller action ends with a redirect. Let's see what happens if I end with a sign up. ERB sign up. What is this sign up is, you know what, I'll just do it this way instead of, I'll say ERB, and I think it's just sign up like this, right? And I'll comment out my redirect. So let's check this out. So I'm going to do the same exact thing. Actually, I'll provide, I know, we'll see a different one. I'll say howard@howard.com. I won't provide a name. I'll provide an email that already exists, and I will provide a password. I'm going to click create user. Let's see what happens. I should get down here on line 63. I should say I will get here. And I'll hit this line to create my flash errors, the key value pair under errors on my flash hash. Okay, but something interesting will happen. And by the way, this is, when you're building flash messages, this is a problem that makes a lot of people mad. Because where did it go? Why don't I see a flash message here? This is maddening. I know I created it. It was just working 2 seconds ago. Now it's not working. Why? Can anyone take what I said about redirects and sort of figure this out and help me out here? Any thoughts? Because only the redirect sends the new HTTP request, and that's where the flash message will live. I only ERB'd. I haven't exited this particular, the place where we are in this HTTP land right now. Notice, by the way, that even though I submitted that form, I'm still at /users. As a result, by the way, of the post request, which doesn't even make sense. Another reason, by the way, and I know a lot of you have heard me say this, this is why it's really important to understand when we're going to ERB and when we're going to redirect. We want to redirect anytime, and we want to be exactly where we should be. The URL should match where we are. So notice now, if I go up here and I hit enter, that's going to send a new GET request, a new HTTP request. In this case, we're going to end up going to the user's index page and watch what happens. Nothing good, for sure. Although something interesting, maybe. Oh man, that's not what I wanted to happen. I don't have an index page for users. Okay, I guess I knew that, but let's go to you, just log in. And I might have just totally ruined this example, but we'll see. Maybe not. And what I'm going to show is that now that I've submitted a new request, our flash message will now persist through this request and then disappear. But this isn't where we wanted it. Okay? Account creation failure, name can't be blank, email can't be, name can't be blank, and email has been taken. Okay, so I got a very nice message here, but did you see how it didn't show up when I rendered? But then when I made a new request, it didn't matter where I went. It didn't matter that I went back to login. This isn't even where I was before. This has nothing to do with creating an account. But now the message persists. So be careful that when you're creating flash messages, that you're only creating them in controller actions that end with a redirect. Okay, otherwise you're going to have this problem, and it's going to be really frustrating if you don't remember this little tidbit. Now, I speak from experience, by the way. So I'm going to put that back. Is that really a problem, though? So imagine the case where you did want to tell the user something somewhere that ends in an ERB. What could you do? And you all know this, even if you don't know you know this. What could you do instead? What's the difference between render and redirect when it comes to access to variables? Anybody? What can I do inside of a controller action that ends in a render where I will maintain access to that whatever I've made in a view? What's the difference between render and redirect when it comes to variables? Somebody help me out here. I usually don't stubbornly wait for a response, but this is one I need someone to help me out. When it comes to render versus redirect, What's the difference with variables? How do I get access to variables from a controller action to a view? Or I should say, what's the only way that I can have access to variables? Do I have access to variables in a redirect? No, thank you, Sushi. No, I don't, right? We only have access to instance variables with a render. So if I needed to, for some reason, I could always create an instance variable to hold some information before I go back to a render. And by the way, very often we will. Like a pattern we're not going to talk about now, but that you will get into with Rails is when we have a failure like this based on an active record validation, suppose that whether we're creating a user or whatever, we may end up rendering back to the form. And in that case, within that form page, we can look at the user directly. And if there are errors on the user, instead of saying if flash message, we could say if user.errors.any or something like that. And use that to show the exact same type of stuff. We could build the same sentence, only instead of building it in the controller action, we could build it based on the errors that exist directly on top of the form or above the form. Okay, if you didn't follow that completely, don't worry, you're going to catch that in Rails. That seemed a little abstract there. Any questions about any of this? Any questions so far? Anybody scratching your head like, man, what is Howard talking about today? Any questions at all? If you have a question, someone else has a question, so please ask it. Okay, makes sense so far. Wow, must be having a good day. Okay, so what I'd like to do now, there are other places where I could add flash messages, by the way, and it'd be pretty easy to do that. If I want to jump in my controllers, and Alwina, I know I didn't finish my commits. For the sake of time today, I'm going to push the commits to the end, but I still appreciate the heads up. I do need to split them up, but I'm just going to split them up down the road for the sake of time. In my journal entries controller, anywhere I have a creation of something, here I already have a flash message. This is a happy message, and this is now going to be an error. I don't have the same pattern that I had before, so I can't grab the errors directly from journal entry. What I could do, which is a little bit hacky, I don't love this, but if I wanted to just check against params and not use the validations for the journal entries, I could do something like this. And this is, I don't recommend this pattern, but I could do it anyway if I wanted to. I could say something like, user, no, what am I, journal entry, sorry. Journal entry dot new. Is that, yeah, nah, you know what, I was going to do something like this, journal entry dot create with params dot, and if I got here, I know that it wasn't created, right? See, you know what, I'm not even going to, okay, I don't know why I decided it was a good idea to try and show you a bad pattern. I'm not going to show you that at all. Basically, if I were going to adjust this and I wanted to get the specific errors, I should move the instantiation of my new journal entry above this if statement and then use if save again. So this one is just going to be something went wrong. Now notice that this if else only has to do with content. So pretty much the only thing that's going to go wrong here is you must provide content for your entry. Okay. This should be errors, right? Errors, yes. So that's my post. I could find my patch and do the same thing. And my delete, I could say something like this, flash message successfully deleted that entry. Deleted. Okay, so you can see where flash messages are really nice, especially within your post, patch, and delete requests. So another thing I would like to do today, though, is add a helper method. Right now I have logged in, current user, and authorized to edit. And I already created a note last time or a couple sessions ago knowing that I wanted to build this method. And what I want to point out is there's a lot of these, a good chunk of these controller actions start with an if statement. If not logged in, redirect, okay? If logged in, do something. Otherwise, redirect. If logged in, do some stuff. Otherwise, redirect. That's called repetition. Okay, and your little hairs on your back of your neck and the sensors in wherever should be going off. Okay, this is not dry. I'm repeating myself. Dry is don't repeat yourself. Okay, so I'm going to build a method called def redirect if not logged in. Now, the name of this method is almost the same exactly as the code that's going to be in it. Who can help me write this method? I'm going to need an if statement, right? Did I lose everybody? If what? If logged in. Well, I want to redirect if not logged in. So yes, Sushi, that's right. But I'm just gonna use the negative, the inverse. If not logged in. And what do I want to do if not logged in? Redirect, exactly. And I think, Mark, I think that's exactly the right choice. Redirect back to the home page, because the home page will allow a user to either choose to log in or sign up. I don't know which they have or haven't done. I don't care, right? So this is perfect. If not logged in, redirect back to the home page. Perfect. So now what I can do is use this helper method all over the place, and it's going to clean up my code considerably. So now everywhere, so here I have if, so what I have to do is just be careful. If logged in, else reader, this whole thing. So this can just all go, bam, gone. And now I can simply invoke this method. Oops, I think I copied it. There we go. I can there. That looks a little bit better. Okay. Again, here it is again. If logged in, else, redirect, end. This whole thing, gone. And now it's just one line of code. Redirect if not logged in. Ooh, can we add a flash message to the helper method? We sure can. Yes, that's a great idea. This is excellent. I love it. Who said that? Mark. Yes. Flash errors. Mark, yes. See, now we're putting things together here. Not only can I redirect them, I can add a message telling them, hey, you weren't logged in. That's what happened. That's why when you tried to go here, we sent you over there. Okay? It's not because we don't like you. It's because you weren't logged in. You need to be logged in. Okay? So flash, you must be logged in to view the page you tried to view. Okay, I could probably word that better, but now, by the way, let's just see. Let's go back. I don't know where back takes me. I think back takes me home to the home page. I'm going to keep on looking for these things. Let's see. I know it is 12. I'm going to run a few minutes over. You're certainly welcome to depart if you have to run. I'll be wrapping this up here shortly, but this is the part that I really wanted to show us. By the way, here I actually have the exact same code, which really now I have as a helper method, which is what it should be. Okay, redirect if not logged in. So notice now if I try to go to users/4 or something like that, I don't know if that exists. Let's see if that did what we want it to. Oh, I don't think no, I didn't use, sorry, I didn't update the users controller yet, did I? So, let's see. Oh, I'm actually not protecting this route, but I think we should. Okay, I think we should. So users, let's see, redirect if not logged in, save that. So now, by the way, am I logged out? No, now I've lost myself. I think, I'm logged out, right? So now if I try to do this again, go back to users4, I've now implemented my redirect if not logged in, and I should arrive back at the home page with a flash message saying you must be logged in to view the page you tried to view, hopefully. What? Get/4. Oh. Users4. Sorry. All right. Any questions right now? We're going to wrap this up here. I'm going to go back through and continue to find anywhere I can add this helper method to clean up my controller actions. Notice as well there's probably a number of times where I want to make sure that, probably in my journal entries controller, I want to make sure that when I try to edit something, I want to make sure that, oh, I already built the authorize to edit. Okay, I was going to say I could build this method. Well, here it is. I already built it. All right, and finally, my server came around and says you must be logged in to view that page, right? So, because that means that my method is now working, which is good. Okay. If I refresh, by the way, the message will go away. Anybody have any questions about anything we talked about today? We're gonna wrap up. Like I say, I'm gonna go forward and sprinkle these things in, but we don't have to do that on the meeting, and I'll push up those changes and I will break up, Alvina, I'll break up those commits. But thank you for reminding me. Any questions? So this is good. I've got a helper method. I've got flash messages in place. So I've got a couple of those stretch goals. Other stretch goals I think would be to improve maybe user functionality, and we'll talk about how much further we want to go. If there's anything on your mind, anything that you'd like to add to a project or you've been struggling with or whatever, let me know. Maybe there's a stretch goal that we could add yet to this project. So, all right. Any questions before we log off today? All right, I'm going to stop the recording.